Welcome to another edition of our Beat Diabetes Books and Quotes series. And today we're going to continue to look at Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Diabetes Code, an excellent book. And if you want to beat diabetes, you couldn't do much better than get this book and read it and incorporate the principles and the understanding that you'll find there. I like Dr. Fung partly because I agree with him almost entirely. That's one reason to like him, but I also like him as a writer. Not only is he effective as a writer, but he's interesting to read, and it's not pedantic, it's not dull, it's lively all the way through. So Dr. Fung, like almost every good teacher, uses illustrations, and I'm going to share a couple of his illustrations and then a couple of points he makes that relate to those illustrations. This is in a chapter about reversing type 2 diabetes, and he talks about how it's reversible and preventable. And then he talks in this one section about what causes diabetes and how it's caused by too much sugar in the body, not just in the blood, but in the body. One of the illustrations that he gives is that of packing a suitcase, and this is a famous illustration. Anybody that knows Dr. Fung and has watched many of his videos or read his book, this stands out. You just don't hardly forget it once you hear it. But he talks about how when you pack a suitcase, at first it's easy to pack it, but finally it gets to its maximum load. You can't hardly get much more in it. So when you've got the suitcase fully packed and then you remember that you've got several more t-shirts, you open the lid, you try to cram in those t-shirts, but it won't hardly accept them because it is filled to the max. So you got to push and shove. You may have to close the suitcase and pound on it or sit on it or jump on it, but that suitcase is, or luggage you might call it, is luggage resistant. It doesn't want to accept any more clothes. It's full. Now, what is the point of that? Well, he's making the point that with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, mind you, your body's full of sugar. It's not just that your blood sugar is high, but your whole body, your cells, your muscles, pretty much every part of you is loaded with too much sugar in the body. So when you try to take in more sugar, you eat a piece of pie, you eat a piece of cake and ice cream, and also starches because they're going to turn into sugar. The body resists that. It's like, I've already got too much sugar as it is. What am I going to do with any more? And your pancreas will fight and huff and puff and work gamely to try to accommodate that and shove it into the cells, into the muscles, wherever it can get it, into the organs. But it doesn't like it, and it doesn't work very well. And so eventually your glucose levels try to rise. Now, one of the points he makes with this illustration is, even if you can manage to shove it into the suitcase and cram it in and close it, it's not a good situation. And what he's saying is that by taking insulin injections for a type 2 diabetic, or by taking a lot of high-powered diabetic meds, you're just shoving and cramming the blood sugar into the organs, into the cells, into the muscles, but you're really not doing yourself a favor because you've already got too much sugar anyway. And he uses another illustration shortly after this, or I mean, within a couple of pages, he's talking about another example. In this case, he uses the idea of garbage. Imagine if you've got a lot of garbage in your house, instead of throwing it out, you just shove it under the bed. Well, that may work fine for a little while, but after a while, your bed's got all the garbage it can handle. And so now you shove some more garbage in the closet. And then you put some garbage in the attic, and you've got garbage everywhere, and it's stinking to the high heavens. But your solution is just, where else can I shove the garbage? And again, what he's saying is, our bodies, when we eat the standard diet, and we eat lots of sugar and lots of starch that are going to turn into sugar, like pasta, like bread, like potatoes, like rice, all those starchy foods, along with the sugary foods, you're a walking load of sugar throughout your body. And when you take in more sugar or more starches, your body's like, what am I going to do with this? So then he makes a couple of points, having said all that. So first he says, if we understand that too much glucose in the blood is toxic, toxic means poisonous, dangerous, can we not understand that too much glucose in the body is toxic as well? So it's not just glucose in your blood. Now, the glucose meter will measure how much glucose is in your blood, but it cannot measure how much glucose is in your body, in your cells, in your organs, in your muscles. And if you're jammed and crammed with sugar everywhere, then of course your blood sugar is going to go high because there's no room to stuff it in to all those other places. He says, what happens when excessive glucose piles up in the body over 10 or 20 years, and it is a 10 or 20-year process, maybe even a 30-year process at times, every cell in the body starts to rot, which is precisely why type 2 diabetes, unlike virtually any other disease, affects every single organ. Your eyes rot and you go blind. Your kidneys rot and you need dialysis. Your heart rots and you get heart attacks and heart failure. Your brain rots, you get Alzheimer's disease. Your liver rots and you get fatty liver disease and cirrhosis. Your legs rot and you get diabetic foot ulcers. Your nerves rot and you get diabetic neuropathy. No part of your body is spared. Repeat, rewind, no part of your body is spared. Now, thankfully, it doesn't hit all at once, but a lot of times it'll be one thing after another after another. Now, he probably could have been more scientifically precise than to use the word rot, but you get the idea. Things break down, and it's all over your body. One final quote. He says, we have overlooked a singular truth. You cannot use drugs to cure a dietary disease. So he's like, if your body's full of sugar and your blood is full of sugar, you can use drugs to get the blood sugar down, but they're going to do absolutely nothing about all the sugar that's in the body. They're just going to deal with blood sugar alone, and that ain't enough. My words, not his. Well, of course, throughout the rest of this book, he's going to be talking about what the solution is, and that is to decrease the amount of sugar in your body. And that, of course, comes through stop taking in so much sugar. Stop taking in all those sugary foods. Stop. Eliminate sugar. Don't just watch your sugar like so many will tell you, watch your sugar. No, don't watch it. Eliminate it. And then not only cut out the sugar, cut out the starches that turn into sugar, and start a diet that's not going to affect that sugar level. Guess what? The sugar level starts to go down. And a lot of times when you have fatty liver, that fat is the result of too much sugar in your body, and it converts the sugar into fat and places it in the liver. Sugar into fat, jam it into the liver. But when you stop eating so much sugar and so many starches, and you focus more on proteins and fats and a very limited carbohydrate diet, the sugar begins to drain off and burn away and melt away, and things get better, and lo and behold, you find you can reverse diabetes and get those numbers down. You've not just dealt with one symptom, which is the high sugar in the blood, the high glucose levels. You've dealt with the amount of sugar in your body itself. And that brings about the reversal of diabetes and an improvement in your symptoms across the board.
Probably most of you know my wife Benedicta, but few of you know the amazing paths God has led her to bring her to where she is today. Benedicta was orphaned at an early age and lived with an elderly stepmother growing to adolescence. They were so poor, Benedicta had to drop out of school and sell food door to door for them to survive. As a teen, Benedicta got a job as a housemaid, which developed into a nightmare. She was required to cook, clean, wash, take care of the children, and she had to get up at 4 a.m. every day just to get her work started. Worse than that, she was frequently beaten. At around 20, she moved to the huge city of Lagos, where she started her own little business. Sometimes she prospered, but at other times she nearly starved and went days at a time without eating. At one point, she became so sick she passed out in her room and nearly died. She found herself outside of her body, and she was able to see the splendors of heaven until she was sent back with a command to share her story. One day, however, her life changed when an American evangelist came to her community to preach. And of course, that was me. The rest, as they say, is history. Benedicta has shared her life story in a recently published autobiography, and you can get it on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback. A link to this book on Amazon is in the description.